So, what is concurrent periodization? Concurrent periodization is a training approach that involves the simultaneous development of multiple areas of strength and hypertrophy within the same training cycle. Although we're going to just do, instead of multiple qualities of strength, it's just going to be mainly deadlift strength. So we're just focusing on varying, rotating exercises in the same training cycle. So it blends different types of training stimuli in each training phase. So the varied training stimuli in each session is slightly different in exercise variance. The adaptability model is to the needs of individuals, and it can target all different kinds of weak points due to the qualities that this program has, and the model aims for balance as well. The benefits include versatility, reduced monotony, and adaptation. Continuous exposure to various stimuli can promote a well-rounded physical development from a strength and performance aspect, and also obviously for the guys who are chasing the physique, from a physique aspect. There is a few challenges, which are managing the balance of different training stimuli and the recovery, which we are going to go over. So if I want to give you an example, concurrent periodization for, say, your chest is if I was to do hit chest 3 times a week, but I'm not doing bench press 3 times a week. Say I'm benching 3 sets of 6 on Monday, and then on Thursday I'm doing 3 sets of 6 on a dumbbell bench press instead, and then maybe on Sunday I'm doing Smith machine incline for 3 sets of 6, and then I come back the Monday or maybe the following week to my next bench press day, doing slightly improved weight, keeping in mind that my recovery is on time. What's good about this, right, is that it's keeping it fresh and you get some variance in there, but I'm not losing my skill, right, my neurological skill of bench pressing because I just did it a week ago. So it's not like yeah, I'm only benching once, like I'm changing up the exercise every time. I'm not changing it to, because if you change it sometimes to like just incline dumbbell press, and then you for like 3 months, and then you go back to bench pressing after 3 months, you hope to get a better bench, but often so that's not the case, just because you haven't practiced the actual specific bench press with the bar in a long time, so you lose the skill of it. But since with concurrent periodization, you only bench pressed the past week, right? But have also included all this other variance, you haven't lost the skill, which is good. The other component of this solution is going to be progressive range of motion. And progressive range of motion is awesome. Let me tell you why. It's a training technique that involves gradually increasing the range of motion in an exercise over time. So this method is typically used to enhance the flexibility and mobility of the strength within the full range of motion. Obviously, the range of motion is a gradual increase. It's extended incrementally, allowing the body to adapt and gain strength in newly reached ranges. The movements are controlled to prevent injury, and the adaptation is fantastic. And the applications are good for people who are looking to rehabilitate, to increase their strength, blah, 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 blah. So we're not just doing progressive range of motion, like only doing part of the range for weeks sometimes, then increasing the range after a couple weeks, then increasing the range. We're going to mix the progressive range of motion and mix the concurrent periodization for our deadlift. So we get some variance and some different ranges. The variance will be the different ranges, if that makes sense. So for deadlift, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to have 4 different exercises that we're going to do. And we're not going to do them all in the same week. We're going to maybe do 2 or 3 of these every week. So for day 1, you're going to do rack pulls. Rack pulls are like deadlifts, except the weight of the barbell rests on the pins of a rack, and we pull we pull from the rack to lockout. These are at variable heights from right above the ankle to right below the knee, sometimes even above the knee, but above the knee, people do those to emphasize trap development, and it really has no carryover whatsoever to deadlift. So for the purpose of this video, we're gonna be leaving them out. So we're gonna get really good at rack pulls, okay? So say our deadlift is 315. We're gonna start doing rack pulls, and we're gonna do 315, 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps, right? And then our next hip hinge day, hip hinge is any pull, like a deadlift, we're gonna do something called block pulls. And we can do these at a different height or the same height, but for some reason block pulls are a little bit more difficult because the breakaway off the blocks to pull to lockout is a little bit harder than pulling off the rack to lockout. I'm not a physicist and why the weight sticks to the blocks so much more than the rack, but it is the case. If the blocks are a little bit lower than the rack, that would be preferable because we are trying to incorporate this progressive range of motion. Yeah, so say Monday you've done your rack pulls 3 to 6 for 315. Then Wednesday or Thursday you've done your block pulls 3 to 6 sets of 315. Now we're going to go test back to our deadlift of three sets of 6, 315. And we've noticed that our lockout has gotten stronger, and if our recovery is on point, it should go up like no problem. Then the fourth is going to be a deficit deadlift where we stand on a block or a plate and we pull with the deadlift on the floor. Since we are higher from standing on the block or the plate, the range of motion is even longer than the deadlift. And we're going to try to do 315 again for maybe less sets, just because this one, the range of motion being so taxing, we don't want to overdo it and jeopardize ourselves from the jump. See how you feel with this one. Some people even do these after the deadlifts as an accessory, or you could have your own single day with it. These will really help with speed off of the floor when you do your deadlift, right? A lot of people are good on the lockout, like the rack pull, because it's easier. It still works the lower back and the upper traps and a bit of the glutes and hamstrings, but all the while it's much easier than the deadlift because the range of motion is less, but you really get that good contraction on your back and good load and stimulus on your back. So yeah, and you could do those on the next day. Since after we've done 315 on our deadlifts or deficit deadlifts, now we're going to add 10% to the bar or 10 pounds, going back to our rack pulls. So now we're going to do on the following week or whenever your next hip hinge day is 335 maybe, right? Or 325, depending on how you feel. 3 sets of 6 on the rack pulls. This is the progression. That's going to be no problem. It's going to feel good. You've never held this much weight before since your max was 315 on deads, but now your rack pulling is 335 and it's going to be a new stimulus for your back, strengthening the spinal erectors. Then you guessed it, on our next day we're going to do 335 on the block pulls, right? And it's going to mimic the deadlift. You're going to feel like a beast. It's going to be amazing, man. And then the next is going to be, we're going to test out, okay, we're going to make sure our recovery is on point, taking 2 to 3 days off the hip hinges and doing 335 or 325 for 3 sets of 6 on the deadlift. And that will be a PR. And then we're gonna do deficits, less sets, maybe 1 set, working up just to help with the speed off the floor. And then we're gonna keep our recovery in track once again, go back to our rack pulls the next week, and you guessed it, we're adding more weight. So 345 or 355, 10 to 20 pounds, 3 sets of 6, new stimulus, new PR, right? This is the concurrent periodization. Every hip hinge day is different. It's a different varying exercise, but we're progressing the range of motion every single time we do it. So obviously block pulls again with the 345. Then the next time we do it, when we do the lifts, our pull day, it's going to be deadlifts with 345. Give yourself adequate rest and make sure that going into this program that you have a good deadlift form already dialed in, and make sure you know your limits, right? And obviously be safe with everything you do. I would recommend straps for a lot of the training, especially on your rack pull day, just because if you've never held the weight before, right, and you're going on the rack pull using a weight you've never used, your grip may be less strong than your back is actually capable of carrying, and we don't want to be our grip to be the limiting factor on this. So this is different, obviously, from linear progression because we are not just doing the same exercise every time. And we can do this, we can keep this going and see how big our deadlift gets for a very, very long time. Obviously, we are human and our body wants to adapt, recognizes certain patterns, and just refuses to work with us and our goals of attaining freakishly, amazingly impressive mass, right? Unfortunately. So I run this for as long as you can, see how big your deadlift can get. Just make sure that you're consistent on the rep ranges that you do each week, so you can actually test how good in the amount of sets and rep ranges, so you can actually have a comparison of how much stronger you're getting. I would recommend writing everything down as well. Let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts as well. So if you finished your deadlift day and your upcoming day is a pull day off the racks again with a new weight, say you were at 345 the past week, now you're doing 355 or 365, you may be tempted to go up and wait on that rack, but please remember that you are going to have to, progress the range of motion the next pull day. So if you're doing 365 because 355 as a PR felt too light, remember you're going to want to have to do 365 on your block pull day and then your deadlift day, and it's going to be a bit counterproductive. You're going to be maybe going ahead of yourself from the rest of the anatomy that's performing the lower part of the movement, hasn't caught up to the part of your anatomy that is performing the strength of the lockout. In this case, I would just really use this day if the new weight on the rack pull feels light, even though it's a weight you've never lifted before. I would just stick with that weight and just practice impeccable form and tempo, right? And control and speed as well, just keeping in mind that you won't risk for injury, you won't stall your progress, and you can do an even heavier weight the next time, keeping you more motivated to stay on this program than ever. If you have a leg day, I would really just focus on, obviously hamstring curls. I wouldn't do any Romanian deadlifts for now, just because it's a hip hinge movement and you've been doing a lot of hip hinges already. I wouldn't squat super heavy or with too much volume right before a deficit deadlift day, just because that's a lot of stress on your lower back and your nervous system. Just really, if you have the goal of increasing the deadlift, really just stick to the program, put it above all else, and you will see gains like you've never seen before, and it will make all your other muscles look better. Thanks. I'm not a professional. This is just something that has worked for me. If you have anything to add, please feel free to do so in the comments. Enjoy. Stay safe and have fun.